They met on Tuesday nights in the back room of a VFW hall that still smelled faintly of coffee and floor wax. The chairs didn't match, neither did the uniforms they no longer wore. There was a Marine gunnery sergeant with forearms like oak, a Navy chief who still stood when the room got quiet, an Air Force major who folded her hands when she listened, and an Army staff sergeant who always sat facing the door. A Coast Guard boatswain's mate arrived last, shaking rain from his jacket like he'd just come in off the Pacific. No one asked what war anyone came from. They already knew. You could hear it in the pauses between sentences. Corporal Henry Callaha, U.S. Army, retired, spoke first, as he usually did. Korea still lived in his voice. It rattled like gravel in a tin can. "We didn't call it PTSD," he said. "We called it not sleeping." He talked about frozen rifles, about counting steps because if you stopped counting, you'd start remembering, about a night patrol that came back short, 2 men, and how nobody ever said their names again because saying them made it real. When he finished, nobody rushed to fill the silence. Silence was an old friend in that room. Sergeant First Class Maria Alvarez, Vietnam, rested her cane against the table. She had been Army then, one of the few women in her unit, and she carried herself like rank never really leaves you. "I learned to tell time by helicopters," she said. "Morning birds, evening birds, medevac birds in between." She talked about tending wounded men while pretending not to hear them cry for their mothers, about writing letters home for soldiers who couldn't hold a pen anymore, about the day she stopped flinching at fireworks, and what it cost her to get there. The Marine gunnery sergeant nodded once, hard. He understood that price. Chief Petty Officer Ray Donnelly, U.S. Navy, cleared his throat. Gulf War. He had been an engineman on a destroyer back when the ocean burned from oil fires. "People think sailors don't see it," he said. "We see it all, just from farther away." He spoke about standing watch while missiles lit the night sky, about pulling survivors from the water with hands that shook long after the adrenaline faded, about how the ship kept moving because ships always do. The coastie leaned forward at that. Sea recognizes sea. Staff Sergeant Tia Brooks, Army Iraq, kept her hands wrapped around a paper cup that had gone cold. "We trained for months," she said. "Still weren't ready." She talked about convoy routes with names that felt like jokes now, about an interpreter who saved her life twice and disappeared the 3rd time, about coming home and being thanked for something she didn't feel like she deserved. Across from her, Captain Lee Morrison, U.S. Air Force, Afghanistan, finished her sentence for her. "The hardest part wasn't the combat," he said. "It was the quiet after." He'd flown medevac, logged hours that never showed up on any medal. He spoke of faces he could still recall with terrifying clarity, and of learning to land a plane while carrying grief in the cockpit. The Coast Guard boatswain's mate, First Class Jonah Reed, waited until the room turned to him. "No one calls us when things are going right," he said. He told stories of hurricanes and overturned boats, of pulling families from water that didn't care about uniforms, of body recoveries that never make the news, and of kids who lived because someone answered the radio. He shrugged. "Service is service," he said. Nobody argued. They didn't compare scars. They didn't rank pain. They passed the coffee, the nods, the understanding. When someone's voice broke, someone else waited. When someone laughed too hard, nobody asked why. In that room, rank faded, but respect didn't. The table carried more weight than it looked capable of holding. Decades of war, peace, loss, survival. Each story laid down gently, like a weapon finally cleared and set aside. When the meeting ended, they stood one by one. Some hugged, some saluted, some just nodded and walked into the night. The table stayed. It always would. Because wars end, service doesn't. And somewhere, every Tuesday night, there will always be a place where veterans sit together and remember, not to relive the past, but to make it bearable. This was a story from service, not about war, but about the people it touched. Freedom is remembered in stories. Responsibility is shown in how we care for those who served. When did you last ask a veteran how they are doing? Your rights were made possible by their sacrifices and memories of past, present, and future.